Hey people, how are you all doing today? It's Makeda Valletta on my Instagram page, Makeda Valletta Travels. I am on IG. I will save it and repost this to my YouTube page, Makeda Valletta Travels. So if you don't follow me in both places, make sure you follow me in both places. In case you're unfamiliar with me, I am a native New Yorker, Harlem to be exact, but I currently reside in Chicago, and I travel a lot, both in the country and out of the country. And for the past few years, I was always traveling in the country and out of the country a lot, but I've been really focusing in the past few years of more in the country travel and traveling different ways, because usually, I fly places. Years ago, I used to take the bus sometimes from certain distances. I'm done with the bus life unless it's New York to DC or something, right? Anyhow, so I want to talk about a road trip that I did, because road trips are cool because you get to see different parts of the country that you don't normally get to see. When you fly, you're literally flying from one city to the next, right? And you don't see everything in between. Most states in the United States are rural. So for people who are not from the US or whatever, every single state in America is mostly rural land. And there's a lot of really beautiful land and beautiful towns and places that you would never discover, because people usually focus on the cities and suburbs that surround cities, right? So on Wednesday, what is today? Monday. Today's Monday, June 16th, the day after Father's Day. Okay. So on last Wednesday, June 11th, I left Chicago in the afternoon and I drove to Cleveland, okay? That's about maybe 5.5 hours or 6 hours or something like that from Chicago to Cleveland. And I went to see a show in downtown Cleveland. That was my second time in Cleveland. I went to Cleveland a couple of years ago. I didn't see much, but what I did see in Cleveland, I didn't think it was particularly beautiful. I love Ohio people, but I didn't like Cleveland when I went there before. But again, it was brief. Now, this time I drove to downtown Cleveland. There's a singer named Sir who was performing. And this summer, I'm going to as many concerts as possible. I already went to see Beyonce in Chicago and New Jersey. I wish I could go see Beyonce in Paris. I would be doing that if I could. But I'm going to see her in Atlanta, okay? And so this summer, I'm just and going to see Beyonce got me on this concert buzz, but it also got the bar set so high. So anyhow, I went to see Sir, right? And he was at the House of Blues in downtown Cleveland. And it's so funny with the first impressions of when you arrive in a city, because and I have to check myself with that, because being from New York, New York is a huge city, and a lot of times when people come to New York, they just go to the touristy areas like Times Square, and then they don't like New York because they think the whole city is like that. And then depending on how you come into New York, if you are driving in and you come through the Holland Tunnel or the Lincoln Tunnel, the first thing you see, your first introduction to New York, is not beautiful at all. It's actually really depressing. And it might make you think that the whole city is like that. But if you come into New York and you drive across the George Washington Bridge, it's beautiful, okay? So it's a totally different thing, right? So sometimes it can depend on where you enter a city, what your first impression is. But when I entered Cleveland, the first thing in downtown Cleveland, it reminded me of Baltimore at first, right? It just reminded me of downtown Baltimore. It just really felt like downtown Baltimore. And then I turned a corner and it was just the dustiest, crustiest people coming out of a corner store, and I'm just now it's reminding me of Newark, New Jersey. Okay, so now it's reminding me of a mixture of Newark, New Jersey and Baltimore, which is not necessarily a good thing, but it is what it is, right? And I'm talking about look and feel, just everything, right? So then I turned the corner and it was lit, okay? Downtown Cleveland was actually one of the more litter downtowns that I've seen, okay? I was actually kind of surprised, all these shops, and I don't know if there was a trolley in the middle, because the street was weird to drive on, it was just different. Nowhere to park, okay? So unlike downtown Chicago where you can park, downtown Cleveland, I didn't see really parking anywhere. It was just like garages, big complex, confusing garages. But I went to see Sir at the House of Blues. Now, at the House of Blues, I will say there were a lot of good-looking black people, okay? There were a lot of beautiful black women. I mean, natural hair, dope style, just originally beautiful. And a lot of good-looking black men. There were a lot of good-looking people at the House of Blues in Cleveland. And again, like I said, I like Ohio people. Out of the places I've been to in Ohio, which has been Cleveland, Columbus, and Youngstown, I don't like Ohio. Never been to Cincinnati. I heard it was cool. I'm going to check it out. But from what I've seen in Ohio, I'm like, but I do like the people. And there's some good-looking people. So there were some beautiful people in that crowd. I was kind of dead tired and went to the show. It was okay. I had an Airbnb. I was going to sleep in the Airbnb. And I was going to drive to Rochester, New York on Thursday morning. That's the 12th, right? I was going to a cannabis conference upstate New York in Rochester, New York. So I go to the Airbnb, and it was just super dusty, okay? Now, I love Airbnb when I travel. I'm really not a hotel person. I really don't like hotels like that. I prefer Airbnbs for many reasons, and I won't get into that right now. I will do a video about why I prefer Airbnb, but it can also depend on where you are, because Airbnb is not good every place. Some places it's not good, right? But anyhow, this Airbnb, which I use a lot, this one was dusty, but Cleveland is kind of dusty. So I got the feeling, and no offense, I'm just saying, it's just true. There are dusty places, right? Like, New York can be dusty sometimes, okay? I don't think that New York is the best city for Airbnb, because a lot of the Airbnbs in New York are in somebody's place that they might have been at for a long time. And New York is an old city. And so sometimes with that old, like you have in Philly, I've never heard of, like with Boston, I've never spent time in Boston, but I've heard a Chicago friend of mine refer to Boston the same way. But sometimes there's a level of old where you can have a level of dusty, but it's like in New York, the ceilings are high, right? So I'm in Harlem right now, and there's high ceilings. I can't jump and touch this ceiling. But some places have really low ceilings, and it just makes the dusty worse, right? So anyhow, the Airbnb I was in, it had carpets. I'm very sensitive to like chemicals in the air and dust and like just non-clean air. So I couldn't stay there. First I was like, maybe I could just lay down and go to sleep, because I just wanted to sleep for 5 hours so I could drive to Rochester, New York. And I just couldn't do it. I was talking to my friend. I got in my car. I said, I'm just going to sleep in my car, okay, because I just couldn't do it. I emailed the host, told him I didn't touch anything. I didn't even use the bathroom, nothing. Asked for a refund. He gave me a full refund, which a lot of times you won't get with a hotel, okay? But now I'm like, okay, where am I going to go? So I said I was awake. So I said I'm going to drive a bit. I drove for like 30 minutes. I wasn't tired, okay? But it was dark, and there were tons of trucks, and there was too many trucks for me on these, like, it was two narrow lanes, right? And there's too many trucks for me. I didn't feel like dealing with that. I'm a safety person. I've driven all over the place. Never been in a car accident in my whole life, okay? And that's because when my dad taught me how to drive, he gave me a rule of safety things to follow that I take very seriously. So I take driving very seriously. And there were too many trucks, so I said, let me get off, right? So I went to a gas station. I actually went to sleep in the front of, it was at a gas station that was well lit. It wasn't a rest stop, because there's no rest stops here. So it was a gas station that was very well lit, bright lights. I parked right in front, basically, like almost in front, a little bit to the side, but in front, and went to sleep. And I put my seat all the way back. I got good sleep, but I was still kind of aware, right? Slept for 5 hours. Woke up and drove to Rochester, New York. Now, Rochester, New York is about a little less than 4 hour drive from Cleveland to Rochester, right? So I drove from Cleveland to Rochester. You drive through the tip of a little bit of Pennsylvania, the very, very top of Pennsylvania. And I've gone all through Pennsylvania, which is a very rural state, very mountainous farmland. But I was up all the way in the top of Pennsylvania, which I've never been there, which is right across the water from Canada. Now, I don't know what Great Lake that is. I don't know if it's Lake Erie, but it didn't look like Lake Michigan, okay? But it's a different, okay. So I go to Rochester, New York. Now, when I went to college, I'm from New York City. When I went to college, I applied to RIT, which is the Rochester Institute of Technology. I applied to that school. I was a biotechnology major at first, and I never went to visit the campus. But everyone I know who had ever been to Rochester would say to me, oh, it's depressing, don't go there. That's all I ever heard about Rochester was, it's depressing, don't go there, right? So I go to this CannaCon conference in Rochester, New York. It was a Northeastern conference, so it was a cannabis business conference, but it was for the Northeast region, so you had people coming from different places in the Northeast. Why they chose Rochester, I have no idea, because they could have chosen Boston, they could have chosen Philly, they could have chosen New York City, they could have chosen Newark, New Jersey, as dusty as it is, right? They could have chosen a lot of places. Why Rochester, New York? I don't know, okay? But that is definitely one of the dustiest places I've ever been. Okay, I know I keep using the word dusty, but places be dusty, okay? And there's different kinds of dust. There's desert dust, and then there is just like old and dusty dust, right? So some of the worst looking people I've ever seen in my life, okay? Like really bad looking people. Like there's some parts of America that you can go to where people look run down. They look like their whole life they've been drinking Pepsi and eating Doritos. They just look like their whole life, okay? Like everything, just the worst shapes, the worst hair. I'm looking at black women walking down the street that had locks that was like matted, like as if you let the stuff just, not even just free-forming locks, but like matted. Like you never washed your hair in your whole life type stuff. Like it was crazy, okay? And then at lunch at the conference, I go to, this is on Thursday, the 12th. I need to go to the post office. I'm walking down the street. I look to the left of the convention center, and there's a river water coming, right? This river water, and I'll post the video. This river water was brown. It looked like poop water, okay? I want to say shit water. It looked disgusting. I have never in my life seen a body of water look that disgusting. And I'm like, what in the is that? Like, and I took videos and pictures, and even the pictures I took, it looks better in the picture than it did in person. It was terrible. And apparently Frederick Douglass is buried in Rochester. I don't know why. I need to look into that history, but he somehow has something to do with that area. So right next to this disgusting lake was a statue of Frederick Douglass and a plaque talking about the history, okay? Now, I didn't get a chance to read it, but I did take photos, okay? So I go to this conference in Rochester on Thursday morning. The conference ended at 4. I hop in my car and I drive to Toronto, okay? Now, I have never been to Canada before, never been to Toronto, of course, never been to Canada. I wanted to go to Toronto because what am I talking about? Kendrick Lamar was performing in Toronto. Now, Kendrick had just been in Chicago, but all his tickets in the U.S., everywhere I looked at New York, I looked at Chicago, any Detroit, whatever, every city I looked at, the tickets were like $300 something. And I'm like, I'm not spending, that's the minimum price. And I'm like, I could see Beyonce 2-3 times for that price, okay? I saw Beyonce for like $130, $140 in Chicago, $130 in New York. I paid $100 for my ticket in Atlanta, okay? And Beyonce was better than everybody. So I'm not paying $300 and something to see Kendrick, right? But when Kendrick was in Chicago the week before, I will tell you, people were coming from all over the place, okay, to Chicago. I met two girls who looked Mexican. I thought they were Mexican girls from Chicago. And they told me, oh no, we're from Cherokee, North Carolina. They were from the Cherokee Reservation in North Carolina, and they came all the way to Chicago, okay, to see Kendrick. There were Indian people in Chicago who were talking about how bad they wanted to see him, looking at the ticket prices, talking about how they wanted to hear, they're not like us. I saw 2 gay white men from Arizona who were talking about Kendrick. So, I mean, when he came to Chicago, I think he did he do, I think he might have just done one show, but everybody was talking about it. People that you wouldn't even think, right? And it was very inspiring and interesting. And just like Beyonce, I know that Kendrick always put on a good show. I was never really a Kendrick fan before. Like, I did like some of his songs before, but I wasn't a fan until recently. And I was like, I saw I was going to be upstate New York. He's performing in Toronto, and I'm going to be, and I always wanted to go to Toronto. I always wanted to have a reason. And the tickets were way cheaper. I think I paid like $130 for the ticket in Toronto, which was, again, in the States, it was $350 and up, right? So, drive to Toronto. Now, I had cannabis that was like in my car, and it's not, even though it's legal in Canada, and it's legal in New York, it's legal in Pennsylvania, it's legal in Ohio, okay? But it is not legal to drive across state lines, out of the country, okay, with it. So I didn't want to, risk it. I've never driven into another country before. So I went to the post office in upstate New York and shipped it to myself, okay? Shipped it to myself in New York City. So I'm like, I'll take a little bit, but I'm not going to take all that across. Okay. There was so much traffic getting into Toronto. So driving from Rochester to Toronto, that was like about a 3-hour drive, I think. And so, but it took longer than that because of all the congestion once I got to Toronto. So, you drive through Buffalo, which I've never been to Buffalo before. New York City person, we never cared about upstate, but I didn't get to see Buffalo. But I drove through it, through Niagara Falls, New York, Niagara Falls, Canada. Now going across the border. So my friends in Detroit, like every time I've been to Detroit, I never used to have my passport with me. So I could always just go into Canada, but I never had my passport with me. But when I asked my friends in Detroit what it was like to cross the border, like how the things they told me, it always sounded to me like the Canadians really questioned Americans a lot. Like you almost had to prove to them why you wanted to come into Canada. And this is pre-Trump, so it doesn't have anything to do with that, right? So that always stayed in my mind because, like, I just remember my Detroit friends saying they'd be like, oh, like, why do you want to come here? Like really questioning you about why you want to come there, right? And it's just like, listen, I don't know any American who wants to go live in Canada, so chill, okay? Like, everything cool is over here. I'm just saying. Anywho, the customs agent, when I was coming into Canada, was like that. He's looking through my passport. Oh, you've been to Colombia a lot, and I have been to Colombia a lot. Oh, you've been to Colombia a lot. What are you doing in Colombia? I'm like, I like to dance. I like Latin America. I like the heat. It's one of my favorite countries. Asking what I do for a living, of course, but I think that's a typical question. Then he's asking, when he's like, oh, you never been here? Why are you coming here now? You drove here? And I watched a YouTube video where an American was talking about crossing the border into Canada and how, like when they always are like, oh, you drove from all the way over such and such, and how like the American was saying, a lot of Canadians don't understand. Americans like to drive. For us to take a road trip and drive someplace is nothing, right? So anyhow, he was like that. Like, oh, you live in Chicago, you drove all the way here just right now, you just came from there. And I'm like, well, I spent the night in Cleveland. I didn't mention Rochester in the conference I went to because I didn't want to bring up the topic of cannabis or whatever. So I'm like, I spent the night in Cleveland and now I'm here. He's like, oh, so, what are you doing? And then I'm coming to a concert. Oh, you have a ticket for the concert? I showed him a ticket for the concert. Oh, you don't have any friends that want to go with you? No, I don't. Like just asking, and he just had like a real mean mug, like he really wanted to make me uncomfortable. And I've gone into many countries before and never had that kind of energy. And it's funny because people say that Canadians are so nice, and maybe they are, but I haven't seen the proof of that yet. But whatever. He was very mean mugging. Okay, so I come in or whatever. Kendrick Lamar is performing downtown at the baseball stadium. Now, I haven't been in stadiums much in my life. Like, I grew up in New York, right next to Yankee Stadium. But this baseball stadium is, like, right downtown Toronto, which is in Chicago. The football stadium, Soldier Field, is right downtown. It was extremely confusing. Like, downtown Toronto was very confusing to me. Okay, now, people always told me that Toronto reminded them of New York. They would always say, oh, it reminds me of New York. It's super diverse. I'm going to tell you, it did not remind me of New York at all, okay? At all, okay? Because, first of all, when you're in New York, signs and stuff are very well labeled. Like if you're ever confused about what street you're on, you look up, there's very well labeled. And if you ask somebody, if you still are confused and you ask somebody in New York, where's 8th Avenue? People know. If you ask the police that are directing traffic, they know, okay? In Toronto, I felt like it was very confusing downtown, right? But it was a big bustling downtown, which was a lot more than what I expected. Because a lot of cities downtown is not like that. So it was very like a lot to do, very modern downtown. That was pretty lit. The people walking around, I didn't see not one person walking around that had some swag, right? Like nobody, right? So I go to the to the show, and it was like a bunch of like 20-year-old white girls, right? Like running everywhere. And the stadium was full. And I'm looking around, right? I'm looking over here, I'm looking over there, looking. It was the corniest crowd of people I've ever seen in my life. It was like basically all white and Indian. And not to say that there's not cool white and Indian people, I'm just saying I didn't see any black people in the audience, but it was all white and Indian, and they were all off beat, okay? But just dorky, like not even like with swag. It was just dorky. And they're bopping, but they're like bopping off beat. And I'll do a review of the show on my other page, the Renaissance Amazon, but I didn't think the show was great, okay? I thought that SZA sounded terrible. Her sound was terrible. Her voice didn't sound good. I don't want to see her perform because she's just stiff and got too much surgery, and especially after seeing Beyonce, it's like, no, give me Beyonce, okay? But Kendrick, I felt like, I've never been big into seeing rappers, even though I am going to go see Wu-Tang soon, and Nas. But a lot of times rappers don't put on a show, so you have to be like such a good rapper. Like, I saw AZ in Chicago. And so I'm going to make some videos for my other page, Renaissance Amazon, doing a review. I've been wanting to do a video about this AZ show that I saw at the City Winery in Chicago. And he's going to be at the City Winery in New York on my birthday. This summer, I might go see him again because AZ was really good. So I'm going to do a video about that. But anyhow, so unless you're like someone like AZ, like you don't need dancers. Like AZ is good to look at, and he has these songs that just take you to that cypher mode, especially if you're from New York and you're a real hip-hop lover. Like AZ takes it, Nas is the same thing, and Nas is going to be performing in Chicago with the Chicago Philharmonic Orchestra. He's going to be performing in Philly with the Philly Harmonic Orchestra. I think I might check the Philly show out too. But rappers, I'm not generally interested in unless it's something. So with Kendrick, I always saw him put on shows. I liked the Super Bowl show, and I saw video clips online of his dancers. He had all black girl dancers, all dark-skinned black women dancing hard. He had men too. But the dancing, the energy, and I love They Not Like Us. That's like the song of the century. I don't care what anybody says. So that motivated me to want to see Kendrick. I wasn't paying $300 and something though, right? So I go to Toronto, see it, and I just didn't think the show was great. Like I said, I'll go into that in another video. I felt like it would be an epic moment to see him in Drake City. But everybody was corny. So I'm like, no wonder why Drake was so cool in Toronto, because these people are corny. And Drake is corny, and we all see it now. Okay? So then I left the show, and I drove to a friend's house in Scarborough, right? This is like a 40-minute drive from downtown Toronto. Now, the traffic, getting out of downtown Toronto. I'm from New York City. So I know traffic and stuff, but like it was weird. Like it was just like a standstill type. You can't move anywhere for 20 minutes just sitting on the city street, not even like on the highway. And then once I got on the highway, so when I had to drive to my friend's house, which is like about 40-minute drive, it was 40 minutes on the highway, not 40 minutes on the street. Okay, so on the highway. I'm on one highway. I was so stressed out because at this point I was really tired, and I had some edibles, and I probably had too many edibles. I was really tired. And I'm on this highway, and everybody is driving like 110 miles an hour, which is how people drive in Chicago, okay? People in Chicago drive so fast. People were driving like that, except the roads were narrow like they are in New York. So New York City on the highway, I feel like New York City has the most narrow roads on highways. Like if you know New York, you ever been on the FDR, those are some narrow roads. So Toronto had narrow roads, but people were driving like 110 miles an hour. It was making me so stressed out because I did not, and it's windy. I didn't want to drive that fast. I'm going 75, 80, and people are make me feel like I'm going 30, right? So that was stressing me out. Didn't want to drive that fast. I wanted to get off the highway, okay? I did want to get off the highway, but there was nothing else I could do. Somehow, I'm on this one highway for so many miles, get off of it. I'm like, then I get onto another highway for several miles. That stressed me out. But luckily, I made it to my friend's house safely, and I passed out. Woke up on Friday morning, okay? That is the 13th, June 13th. And I went and drove around a little bit around in the area of Scarborough. I saw the University of Toronto's campus, Scarborough. Now, I was in Toronto, I can tell it's a big city. Oh, it also felt busy downtown, like New York. So it didn't remind me of New York, but the busyness downtown did, okay? Like it felt like it was more populated than it is. The population of Toronto was the same as Chicago, about 3 million. But it felt like it was more than that when I was downtown. So anyhow, from what I did see in Toronto, I didn't particularly see beautiful architecture. And I love cities with beautiful architecture, which is one reason why I love Chicago so much. Toronto architecture, I didn't see anything that did it for me at all. So if somebody knows areas in Toronto with beautiful architecture, please tell me, because if I ever go back, I'll try to check it out, right? So then I decided to drive back. I didn't particularly like Toronto. I just wanted to go back to America at that point. So I drove back to New York City on Friday morning. Now, Toronto is an 8-hour drive from New York City. And Toronto is an 8-hour drive from Chicago. So it's really equal distance, right? So on the way back to New York City, I decided to go a different route. So instead of coming across the Buffalo, Niagara Falls, I drove east in Canada for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours or something like that. And then came over a bridge. It's called Thousand Islands. So it's an area in like upstate New York, Toronto, called Thousand Islands. It's really beautiful. I've never heard of it before. But it's all these islands. I guess it's 1,000 islands. And when you look at it, there's castles on these islands and all these beautiful things. It looks like some magical land that's like, if I looked at it on a video, I would think this is in Colombia or in Brazil somewhere, and it's like in New York State. I think it's considered New York. I don't know if it's considered New York or Canada, but it's in between that New York and Canada. It was really beautiful. Driving across that was beautiful. Way prettier than coming in from Niagara Falls and Buffalo. And so then I drove, 2.5 hours east in Canada before I came out into, you said that's east close to Albany? No, Albany, no. Yeah, it is. Either way, if I came through Niagara Falls or through the way I went, either way, I would be coming through Albany. It is east, whereas like Niagara Falls is more west. But New York City is east. So if I came in through Niagara Falls, I would still end up driving east into Albany. But Albany is way closer to New York City. It's like 2 hours or 2.5 hours from New York City, which is, when I got into New York State, I had 5 hours to get to New York City. So Albany is, way south. But, so driving to New York State, like, again, I used to be a New York City snob. I didn't care about my state. I've driven through so many states in America, so many states on the East Coast, so many states on the West Coast, so many states in the Midwest that I've driven through, and never drove through my own state of New York, right? And I'm like, whatever. And it's just 5 years ago, I had an ex who was from, not even like upstate, but he was from like an hour and a half away from New York City, north. And just going up there, I'm like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful up here. And I've been obsessed with seeing more of New York State. And then I would always hear from people about New York City, the different cities in New York. I always hear they were really dusty. I heard that about Rochester, heard about Buffalo, heard about Syracuse. I heard Utica was cute. I don't know, but I just want to see. Like, right? So that's the thing about driving, is you can go and come as you please. Like, when you fly, if you want to leave early, it's hard. Sometimes not possible. If you want to leave later, sometimes it's not possible. But when you're driving, it's like, oh, I can leave now, let me bounce, let me get out. And in most of America, you need a car anyway. So if I had, so just being able to move when you want to move, I just like that, So I'm into the road tripping thing. Like, I'm going to drive to Atlanta next month, and I'm going to go through Kentucky. So I'm going to get to see, and I've been to, out of the 50 states, I've been to 37 states, okay? Before this year ends, it'll be at 40, because I'm going to add Oregon to that list. I'm going to add Kentucky to that list, and Oklahoma. Okay, those are the 3 states I'm going to go to this year before the year ends, and I'll be at 40 states. So driving through New York State, first of all, before that, when I was in Canada, I don't mean to be mean, but I'm just a real person, okay? I'm opinionated. We all have our opinions. I'm not somebody who loves everything and everyone and every place, okay? And you can't judge a country by just going to one city. And you can't judge a city by just going to one place in a few hours, right? So I will say that. I will admit that. So people can always correct me if you think I'm wrong. But to me, I love American food, okay? I love Mexican food. Those 2 cuisines I cannot live without. American and Mexican. No negotiation, okay? There's other things that I like, but I could live without it. Can't do without my Mexican food. Can't do without my American food. Okay. I feel like Canadian food. Like, who wants Canadian food? Like, has anybody ever seen a Canadian restaurant? It's like British food to me. Like, when I was in London, I was in food hell. Nobody can convince me that there is good food in London. That food was so disgusting. I'm like, people talk about American food. I'm like, American food is way better than that stuff to eat in the UK. Way better. And the UK is so processed. To me, European food in general is just very bland. I have heard that Greek food and Italian food is really good. But yeah, no. Okay. So, but to me, Canadian, when I was at the baseball stadium, this is where Canada lost points and Toronto lost points. I got some chicken fingers and fries. I said, do you have barbecue sauce? They said, no, we have plum sauce. And I'm like, plum sauce? Like, and I took the plum sauce. It was not hitting the spot. It's like sticking your chicken in jelly or marmalade or something. Why would I want to stick fried chicken into marmalade? Why don't you have barbecue sauce, okay? In America, they'd have barbecue sauce. And trust and believe, barbecue sauce is way better than plum sauce. This is what they have in Toronto, okay? That poutine stuff that they eat, okay, with the gravy and the cheese curds, looks disgusting. I'm never going to eat that. That doesn't sound good. You know what I would rather have? American cheese fries with some bacon on it, okay? So the food, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get out of Canada and just come back to America, because the thing about leaving the country, sometimes people say everybody should leave the country, everybody should leave the country. That's debatable of whether everybody should leave the country. I don't necessarily agree that everybody should or needs to leave the country, because leaving the country can be very uncomfortable, which is one of the reasons why I am really getting into traveling in America, because I like leaving the country, but there's uncomfortable things. You have different laws. You know, I'm very much into my health. I'm into cannabis medicine. I don't take pharmaceuticals. If I have a headache, I use cannabis. If I have menstrual cramps, I use cannabis. If I get a rash, a bite, allergic reaction to something, that's what I use. I'm not using Advil and NSAIDs. I'm not doing that. But if it's illegal for me to take this here, and I could go to jail, and I don't want to go someplace where wearing a dress like this, and I'm in some Muslim country, and they're like, oh, you're showing your skin, we're going to stone you or arrest you. I'm not going there. You know what I'm saying? I like to drink tea every morning. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I need my caffeine. I drink matcha or yerba mate. Yerba mate is from South America. most of the world, you can't find tea. Most of the world is into coffee. In America, I can find what I need. Okay? So, I didn't feel like, usually before I go to a different country, I'll do research on YouTube. It's a great source about the do's and don'ts of that country, understanding the currency, because I didn't even do the currency thing in my mind. I didn't understand the gas prices when I was in Canada. The gas prices in Canada, the way it was written, and a couple of people tried to halfway explain it, but I didn't understand it. But the gas would say like 125.1, 131.2, okay? And I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean $125? And it's like, if that does, what is, I just didn't understand what that meant. I had no idea what I was, because I'm like, even if it's in Canadian dollars, what does 125.1 mean? Like, I don't know. I saw, and I could have gone on YouTube and figured it out, but I was too tired. I wasn't in the brain space to try to learn a new language. And when I say a new language, I mean when you go to another country, you have to learn a new language. Not just, I'm not talking about what people speak, but just how you do things. You know, how things are. Things are different, okay? And even though Canada is so close, it's different. So, there was that. But when I was driving, and the food was, I didn't feel like experimenting. I just wanted to eat some good food. I just wanted to go back to America. I'm like, just take me back where stuff is familiar. I don't know if they got good Mexican food in Canada. Do they? I don't know, because I didn't see Mexicans. I saw a lot of Indian people, like in London, okay? But you got to have the Mexicans, okay? So then, whatchamacallit, when I was, because even with breakfast, to me, Americans and Mexicans are the only people who do breakfast good. So when I was driving east to head back to New York, I was at a gas station, and I picked up some Haagen-Dazs ice cream. And I discovered, okay, I like to look at ingredients in different places. I looked at the ingredients. The ingredients in Canada is different than the ingredients in the United States. The ingredients in the UK was different than ingredients in the United States, okay? I would say that what I saw in Canada and the US was better than what I saw in the UK. One of the differences is that in Canada, they had liquid egg yolks in the ice cream. They didn't have egg yolks in the ice cream here. Do they have egg yolks? If they do, it's not liquid. I need to look at it. But anyhow, and in Canada, it said that they really tried to use Canadian dairy, which is great. But they had flavors in Canada they didn't have over here. They had this ice cream bar that was chocolate hazelnuts. And it's so good, and I'm so mad because we don't have it in America, and I don't know why. Then I saw another one that was salted caramel, but it had chocolate in it outside. I'm an ice cream connoisseur, but Haagen-Dazs is the only commercial company. I don't do Breyers or Edie's or Talenti. I do quality ice cream, but out of the commercial brands, Haagen-Dazs is my go-to. And so they had those two flavors they don't have in the U.S. And that caused me to come back here and be mad about it and think, why wouldn't they give that to us? Why I think we don't want that. So I go on the Haagen-Dazs website, and I don't see it on the website. And so I said, let me Google Haagen-Dazs Canada. I go to Haagen-Dazs Canada, and I find out that Haagen-Dazs Canada is a different, I think, a company altogether. They have totally different stuff. They had a key lime pie ice cream that sounded really good that we don't have over here. So that made me upset. And I'm like, how come I can't, New York State could be right there, but we can't get that Canadian Haagen-Dazs? Like, that's the one thing I can say that Canada contributes that could be a great contribution. But anyhow, I do want to check out Montreal. Montreal is a 5-hour drive from New York City. So, and in the fall, I'll be going to a conference in Oregon. And when I'm there, Seattle is one of my favorite cities. It's beautiful. So when I'm there, I'm going to take a little trip up to Vancouver and check out that part of Canada, just to check out some different parts. But to me, being in Canada, it felt like I was so far north. And I don't like that feeling. Like, because you're so far from the equator. New York City is north enough. Even when you go to Boston, I feel like the sun is not that strong. The sun can be very strong in New York City. And the further south you go to D.C., stronger. The humidity and the sun, stronger. You go to North Carolina, stronger. South Carolina, stronger. You go to Florida, you can feel it. You go to Cartagena, Colombia, you feel like you're going to burn to death. And you're on fire in the oven, okay? And the rotisserie. But I like that. I get much darker. Like, I like that strong sun. Canada, to me, the sun didn't feel strong enough, which is why, one of the reasons why I've hesitated on going there, because I don't want to go in the summer. Because in the summer, I want all my warm days. all my hot days. I don't want to go someplace in the summer that's going to be cooler. That's why I won't go to the Bay Area. I'm not going to San Francisco in the summertime so I can sit in 55-degree weather in August. No. Okay. So, I'd rather really go to Canada in the cooler months when it's already cool here, and I go there, it's still cool. It's not like I'm going from hot to cool. But yeah, and so now I'm in New York City. So I went from Chicago on Wednesday to Cleveland Wednesday night, saw Sir perform. Thursday morning, drove to Rochester, New York, went to a cannabis business conference, got in the car, drove to Toronto, saw Kendrick perform, crashed in Toronto, got up on Friday morning and drove to New York City. And driving through New York State is beautiful, and it's just full of farms. And there's different routes you can drive. There's a route with no tolls, a route with tolls. At some point, I got on the Taconic. I can like write down the whole route that I went, but at some point I got on the Taconic, and then I got on Sawmill River Parkway. I drove over a raccoon. I've never driven over animals before, and I hate raccoons. It's always been like a life mission to kill them, but I'm driving on the highway in a car. It was 2 lanes, dark. I might have been like 2 hours from New York City at this point, and the car is in the right lane. He was going a little faster than me. He slowed down a little bit. As soon as he slowed down a little bit, right in my path, this big ass ugly raccoon walks, and I didn't want to drive over him because I didn't want to feel the splatter of it, because I felt like I drove over a grape. It's almost like I could feel the whole body just explode. It was a disgusting feeling, and dead was the raccoon. Okay, now on my drive, I saw a lot of dead deer everywhere. In certain states, not all of them, but there was like a lot of dead deer on the highway. And luckily, I didn't have to hit any of them because I don't want to be bothered. That's the thing about country driving for me, is the wild animals coming out. I could deal with city driving all day. City driving, especially in New York, is well lit, lots of lights. I could deal with people walking in the street and bikes, but I can't deal with random wild animals coming out the dark. Okay. So yeah, so that was my trip from Chicago to Cleveland to Rochester to Toronto to New York City from Wednesday to Friday. And now I'm in New York City. Now I'm here. And before I head back to Chicago, I'm going to take a trip down to D.C. D.C. is a 4-hour drive, and then Chicago's 10 hours from there. And maybe I'll stop in Pittsburgh, or maybe I'll just drive straight through. We'll see. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that. My little road trip experience solo. And that's that. I'm going to be doing a few of them. And so if anybody has anything to share about Rochester, about Toronto, about Cleveland, any of those places, feel free. And I will say the cannabis, there's a lot of dispensaries in Canada, and they're reasonably priced. But I get all my stuff from Michigan now, and Michigan has the best prices, and so I'm good. But yeah, Canada does have better prices than you find in most places in the U.S. Okay, people, I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. Make sure you follow me on YouTube and Instagram. Okay, bye.